Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to dive into something super interesting, at least to me, the whole world of Latino voices in U.S. publishing. We're looking at the Latinos 100 white paper for this, and let me tell you, some real eye-opening stuff in here.
It really digs into how complex representation is in this industry, Like publishing really shapes our whole cultural landscape.
Right, and it makes you think, like, the Latino community is such a huge part of the U.S., I mean, influencing everything, food, music, you name it, but then you look at the books we read, and something's just off.
Yeah, it's a real gap, and it's been going on for a while now. Way back in the early 1900s, seeing a Latino author published by a big US publishing house, it was super rare.
So this isn't a new thing.
Not at all, no.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it, right? Language differences, cultural biases, all huge obstacles for these authors back then. But even then, you had folks like Jose Marti, Federico Garcia Lorca, their work, it went beyond borders, influenced people for generations.
Speaks to how powerful those voices were, even with all that pushing against them.
For sure. And that fight for recognition, it really blew up during the Chicano movement, 60s and 70s. This wasn't just social justice stuff either. It was about owning their own stories. Guys like Rodolfo Anaya, Bless Me, Ultima, and Gloria Enzaldúa, wow, she went deep on Chicano identity. They really pushed the limits of what people thought these stories could be.
Their impact's huge, for sure.
Right.
But did that energy, did it change the publishing industry for good, long term?
Well, so later in the 20th century, you get Sandra Cisneros, Julia Alvarez. They hit it big, national recognition. Everyone loved their stories. But when you look at the hard numbers, their success, as big as it was, it didn't open the floodgates for everyone else.
It's more like individual wins, not a system-wide change.
Exactly. And that's where this Latinas 100 white paper gets really interesting. Get this, as of 2022, Latino authors, they only made up about 7.16% of books published by the big publishers. But Latinos are way more of the U.S. population than that.
Wow, that's a huge difference. And I got to imagine there's tons of talent out there. So what's the deal? What's stopping these stories from getting out to everyone?
It's complicated. There's this old idea in the industry that books by or about Latinos, they're for a niche market. So they won't sell as well, which means smaller advances, smaller marketing budgets, the whole thing.
So it's they don't do well because they don't get the support to do well.
Yeah, kind of. It's a vicious cycle, And then there's negotiating, getting a deal, publishing, a lot of industries, it has unconscious bias, right?
So even if a Latino author gets their foot in the door, it's already harder for them to get a good deal.
Yeah, often that's the case. They might not have the connections to agents, to mentors. They might not know how the industry works, how to get those contracts right, to really fight for themselves.
Man, that's got to be rough. And it's not just tough on the authors, it's the readers, too. We miss out on all those stories, all that richness and diversity.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not even just how many books get published. It's also are people seeing them? How much are they marketing them? That has a huge impact.
You're right. They really do kind of control what we all end up reading. And then that shapes how we see the world, too, right?
Yeah, definitely. But hey, there's some good stuff happening, too. More and more publishers are, trying to make things more diverse. They're starting new initiatives and stuff.
Oh, yeah. What are they actually doing, though?
Well, a lot of them are doing mentorship programs now, getting resources and trying to make it a more welcoming place for everyone. There's the whole #Dignidad Literaria movement, which is all about making representation real, not just checking a box,
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's going beyond just saying you're diverse and actually dealing with the root causes.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. And it's bigger than just the publishers themselves, too. We're seeing a ton of literary festivals and conferences, and they're all about Latino literature, which is awesome. It gives new authors a stage to show off their work, connect with readers, meet other people in the industry. It's great.
Yeah, that community aspect is so important, especially in a field that can feel, I don't know, kind of lonely sometimes, especially if you haven't traditionally been, well represented.
Totally. And another cool thing, the variety of stuff Latino authors are writing these days, it's amazing. They're not stuck in a box anymore. Sci-fi, fantasy, romance, thrillers, you name it, they're doing it.
It's they're taking back their narratives,
Wow.
showing everyone that there's no one way to be a Latino story. And it just reminds you that a great story is a great story no matter who's telling it.
100%. And speaking of breaking down those barriers, we got to talk about digital publishing and self-publishing too. Man, those have been huge, right? It's democratizing access, giving authors this direct line to readers. They can bypass the whole traditional system.
They can take control of their stories and get them out there on their own terms.
But exactly. And that's been so empowering, especially for authors who've had to jump through more hoops, you know? Sure, it's more competitive now, but that also means there's more room for different voices to be heard.
It sounds like publishing is going through some major changes. But like, are these changes moving the needle? Are we seeing actual progress in terms of the
And it's
numbers?
a marathon, not a sprint, you know? But it's important to remember this isn't just about stats, right? It has real-world consequences. When you don't hear from Latino voices in books, it just reinforces stereotypes. It limits understanding. We all miss out on those viewpoints.
It hurts everyone, really. It's like it keeps telling us that those stories, those diverse stories, they're just niche interests instead of being, part of the big complex world we live in.
Right. It's about seeing these stories as universal, with truths and feelings that everyone can relate to. And that's why we got to support these authors. It's not just the right thing to do, it makes things more interesting for everyone. Reading those stories makes the whole literary world richer, you know?
It's like we're at this turning point, right? The industry's finally kind of waking up to how powerful and diverse Latino storytelling is. And readers, they're ready for it. But how do we make sure this isn't like a flash in the pan? What has to happen to make this real lasting change?
That's the million-dollar question, right? Turning this energy into something that sticks. All those diversity initiatives we talked about, they got to be more than just talk. Publishers need to put their money where their mouth is, make sure those programs have what they need to actually work.
Yeah, like it's got to be a place where these voices are not just like allowed, but actually valued, right?
100%. And that means changing how the whole market thinks. We can't keep seeing books by Latino authors as only for a small group. Those are American stories, human stories. They show how diverse we all are.
It's shifting from niche to we need this. Right?
Exactly. And that shift needs to happen everywhere. How they market the books, how they get reviewed, everything. We need more diverse voices, like making decisions in the industry, choosing what gets published in the first place.
So it's more than just like churning out more books. It's got to be an environment where those books can actually succeed, reach their full potential, right? What about the authors themselves, though? How can we support them, make sure they've got the tools and guidance to make it in this, let's be honest, kind of crazy industry?
Mentorship, that's huge. Getting new writers connected with people who've been there, done that, authors, industry folks, that's invaluable. There are some great organizations doing this, like the Latinx Writers Collective. They're fantastic. Building a community, giving resources to writers at all different stages. It's awesome.
Love it. Building those connections, lifting each other up. That's how we make change. And for those of us listening, eager to find these voices, where do we even begin?
Just be open to something new. Get out of your comfort zone a bit. Look for authors whose work speaks to you, you know. There's a ton of great stuff online these days, like Latinx in publishing. They highlight new releases, promote all these talented writers.
So many incredible resources. This has been a really eye-opening conversation, I got to say. I feel inspired, and I hope our listeners do too. Supporting Latino authors, it's not about checking boxes. It's about embracing this whole world of stories, making the literary landscape richer.
Couldn't have said it better myself. These stories, they teach us things, entertain us, make us think differently, and in the end, they bring us together, you know? That's something to celebrate.
Beautifully said. Huge thanks to our expert for this awesome, thought-provoking conversation. We really appreciate it. And to all of you listening, keep exploring, keep the conversation going, and we'll catch you on our next deep dive.